Another Death Battle season is behind us now, which means once again the floodgates are open for predictions for the next season, with 6 characters being currently confirmed. I'll start by going over who I think they could fight, and then I'll move on to some more general predictions. Not going to spend too much time going over any of these because I do not want a half-hour long video on my hands or any of my awful attempts at power scaling. This is just meant to be a chill video to close the year off. Fuck, I forgot that was in the script. This was meant to come out in December, whoops. Oh, and Nemesis did a video on this as well. Both of us wrote our script separately and neither of us knew what the other wrote, so go watch that video and see what he has to say. So first on the chopping block is Scarlet Witch. Definitely the more interesting of the WandaVision duo for them to capitalise on the recent popularity of, especially given Doctor Strange 2 ensuring she'll be super relevant. Her big match from what I know is Zatanna, which is a DC character. Very hot take incoming, but I think they use those series a bit too much. Yes, this is a very controversial take and I'm so brave for saying it. I mean, it's preferable to Wanda's other big match I've heard of, which is Phoenix. Yes, the Marvel one. Take their crossover out of crossover versus, why not? About the only thing I'd unironically look forward to in either of these episodes is the inevitable use of something like the No More Mutants line that Wanda has in the comics. And on the ironic side, they could bring up Batman trapping people in magic crystals which he got from Zatanna, and that would make me very happy. Wanda and Zatanna do bring a lot of variety to the table, but Strange vs. Fate and Thanos vs. Darkseid have me worried they wouldn't do much with it. Maybe they'll have learned from their mistakes, who knows. Tanjiro from Demon Slayer is the second one they revealed, and as far as I'm aware his only big match is Jonathan Joestar. I've seen 6 episodes of Demon Slayer, so I have at least a baseline knowledge for the story, but I can't say I'm too interested in this one. I've also seen the first 3 episodes of JoJo Part 1 and I wasn't too big a fan, so neither series is really getting my hopes up. I just know Liam's absolutely going to be on this one, so if you get a passion project on the level of Dio vs. Alucard, I won't complain. Also, some of my friends are hyped for Demon Slayer as well, so I'm not opposed to this. Tetsuo is the character here I have the most interest in on their own. The high chance of him fighting Magneto does bring that down, but not to the point where I'm not excited to see Tetsuo get covered. I really like him, and the Akira movie is really good. I haven't read the manga, but I don't doubt it's equally great. And the 10% chance he has a fighting Mewtwo instead is really getting my hopes up they'll go for that instead of more cape shit. But I won't be too upset if it's Magneto, I guess. He can do some cool stuff and take the fight higher in scale. If there's any Marvel character who hasn't been on Death Battle yet that deserves to, it's Magneto. I have made peace with this match happening. I don't know who Boba Fett's gonna fight at all, really. I hear the Predator's the most likely option, but at that point, why not just bring in Mando or Django and get some new blood on the scene? They are not gonna do Boba vs. Hamas 3. I doubt they'll bring in anyone like Wolf O'Donnell for his opponent. I don't know of any other options on the table for him. And if it is Predator, why not bring them up as the reveal? Because they'd have the widest variety of potential matchups a character reveal would have had since Beerus back in season 7. Regardless, Boba's cool, but I don't give a shit about any of his matches. My excitement for Boba vs. Predator would solely be for the Predator. Vegeta's fighting Thor, I don't care. I'm happy for the Cloudman that he's getting his Comfort Kinney matchup because my friends being happy makes me happy. That is the extent of my interest, don't care, moving on. And finally Jinx, who is absolutely fighting Harley Quinn, but fuck you, I'm putting forward the goated Trigger Happy as her opponent instead because that would be really funny to me if it ended up happening. I don't know the connections for it beyond them riding around on their own missiles, but I hear it thrown around, and it uses Skylanders, which is a series I have a lot of nostalgia for, so I am completely down with it happening. Also, I'd respect the hell out of them for turning down a chance to use probably the most relevant and profitable DC character as of late, which is exactly why they're not gonna do it, but you know, I hear Jinx is the agreed upon winner in the Versus community, so if she can end the DC streak, I am perfectly fine with that. I've never played League of Legends or watched any Harley media that isn't part of the DC EU, so if they aren't using Trigger Happy, I don't care. And now for the other big matches I think they're very likely to do next season. I'll go ahead and predict the finale first. I think it will be Kyle Rayner versus Simone the Digger. With the amount of traction it's picked up as of late and the grand scale being perfectly suited for a finale, I can totally see them doing it, especially since it lets them use more DC for a match that's not boring as shit. I know it was popularized by the community out of spite because people wanted DC to lose, but I don't care, man. This sounds like a generally really fun idea that could go higher in scale than any episode before. Also, with all their in-house 3D heavy hitters being gone, this leaves the door open for a sprite-based finale, and we've seen Lanterns work very well in that style with a lot of hand-drawn stuff before. Gru vs. Megamind is another one I'm fully confident in. All of the stars have aligned and this is basically the perfect time to do it. They just showed that DreamWorks and animated film episodes can do really well compared to a lot of other stuff in Season 8. Minions 2 is releasing in the summer, Megamind continues to be more relevant in pop culture than he ever has been. They even got this as the most requested episode from their subreddit when it was left up to them to decide the community battle. I would be shocked if they didn't end up doing this one, and also really disappointed, because an army battle with their full arsenals where they bring in the minions and the brain bots and a lot of wacky weaponry sounds like a lot of fun. But if they reference the Ben vs. Hal thing that was in Button of Doom I'm giving it a 1 out of 10 by default. Another one I think is super likely because of movie release dates is Bowser vs Eggman. This is a long time legacy fight with both of these two being constantly requested to return. Eggman because of how old his episode is, and Bowser because of how dirty he got done against Ganon. And as much of a pain in the ass as Mario and Sonic are in versus, I would love for this to happen. These two are my favourites in their respective series, and a more modern army battle where they get to throw everything at each other would be so fun. Like Gru vs Megamind, except I'd imagine Bowser would throw hands more and use more of his Batman grade magic. This would either happen later in the year or near the start to coincide with one of their movies dropping, probably near the start for the Sonic movie sequel so that it can be relevant for both of them, but I can also see it being a big penultimate episode in December when ad rates are at their highest. On the topic of Nintendo rep, there's Fire Emblem. Ben tweeted asking people for Fire Emblem matches, which is usually a sign they want to use them soon if Beerus, Yoda, and Mega Man are any indication. And the most popular requests I saw were Kenshin vs Lin, Lucina vs Grovyle, and Kylo Ren vs Edelgard. I'd assume the latter's the most likely in spite of Chad's desire to use Kenshin, just because of how well Star Wars seems to do for them. I know they have Boba as well, but they've used non-comic series multiple times in other recent seasons, so I can see it happening here as well. Though 2 is definitely the most I can see happening. I had Palpatine vs Xehanort on here as well originally, but that is certainly off the table now. Edelgard is my good friend Brandon's favourite Fire Emblem lord, and Kylo's a pretty widely hated character in my friend group, so I'm fine seeing this happen given the general consensus from what I hear is Edelgard winning. Even though I do still like Kylo. I don't know what I'd want from the episode, just give me a shot of Edelgard wielding a lightsaber and I'll give the episode a 10 out of 10, I swear. And one final lock I have is Omni-Man, who's almost guaranteed with how popular he, his series, and even his versus matches are. Right, so I made a whole video on why I don't like Omni-Man vs Homelander as a match, and that still holds up to my current thoughts, but don't take that video as me saying I would hate it happening or anything. I fucking love both of these characters, and seeing them get covered would be so cool, even if the connections holding them together are flimsy. Bardock would be my preferred opponent for him, but I would not be upset with Homelander being his opponent at all. And with my big predictions out of the way, now I'm just going to do a lightning round of matches I've seen requested a fair bit that I think could be cool. More Marvel vs DC is obviously likely, and my most wanted of those is Black Adam vs Apocalypse. Partially because it spawned a massive inside joke on my channel and in my friend group, but also because it's a genuinely interesting match that has connections that aren't just their power set. And given Black Adam's upcoming movie and the revival of the X-Men cartoon, there is precedent for them being relevant enough for Death Battle to use, so me including this isn't just wishful thinking. I don't have any Marvel matches I think are likely out of DC legacy fights, but I do think DC has a shot of fighting another series, other than Simon vs Kyle. Given the recent popularity of Shin Megami Tensei 5, I can see John Constantine vs Raido happening. They've expressed interest in using Constantine, and I can see Shin Megami Tensei being relevant enough for them to get views with. From what I hear, Raido should stomp horrifically, which came as a shock to me. But if the series to end the DC streak is the one that gave us the ending music to Snake vs Sam, you won't find me complaining. Though if they want to give us a different Shin Megami Tensei episode, Persona is a spin-off of that series. There is always Joker vs Jar. Koro Sensei vs Monokuma is an episode Ultra Guy said on his blog that he'd picked up on, and he really wants to use Danganronpa, so please God I beg, I would pop off for Koro Sensei so much. Slayer vs Dimitri is a match I know DJ likes, so if they were to do any more fighting games I'd place my bets on that. I hear Slayer stomps both statistically and narratively, so if he does, the most respectful way to go about it is for Dimitri to have him be the one person who could push Slayer into putting in any effort. Basically what Dante vs Bayonetta did, where Bayo was able to push Dante to getting angry and still held her own. With Guardians of the Galaxy 3 coming out, I can see them doing a match to come out alongside that, but the most popular options I see there are Rocket Raccoon vs Stitch and Drax vs Kratos, so never mind, I'm skipping this part. I can see them doing a Genshin Impact episode because of the game's massive popularity, but I don't know what match they'd go with exactly. I've heard a few good matches going around like Hu Tao vs Hisako, Raiden Shogun vs Raiden, and Zhongli vs Avatar Kyoshi, though that last one would probably have to wait until after Kyoshi's series comes out. Again, I don't know what specific matches with this series would be likely to happen next year, but I'd be surprised if they didn't bank on one of the biggest trendy games of the last few years. But then again, they didn't for Cuphead or anything like that. Please let the Cuphead show give them reason to use him, please God I beg. Though his only match I like is Bendy, which I think would only work if they went down a more action-packed route than the DBX to help it stand out. I'd love to see more cartoon episodes. Stuff like Peter vs Homer, Jenny vs Robot Boy, Dexter vs Jimmy Neutron, Mordecai and Rigby vs Finn and Jake, you know, that kind of stuff. Though the only one of those I see as being particularly likely is Regular Show vs Adventure Time because of the release of Multiverses. Which is fine by me because it's easily the one of those four that I want the most. Nero vs Hellboy is another comic match I've seen making the rounds as of late, and I'd love if Devil May Cry got another banger episode to add to the record. I'd also love to have incentive to check out more Hellboy media that isn't that god-awful 2019 movie. Sack Boy vs Maxwell is an episode with more creative potential than most others that don't involve reality warping. It's among some of my friends' most wanted, and I know DJ likes it, so here's hoping they'll just exclude DC scaling if they end up doing it. And if they reference this gift, then I'll have a new favourite episode on my hands. Destroyer vs Iris is Nem's most wanted match, which I think could be on the table now given that he's friends with a good few people on the team and is now one of, if not the biggest figures in the community. I mean, if your only mate can get Blake vs Mikasa, then it's not out of the realm of possibility that Nem can get his dream match. And then closing it off, I don't have any one specific match, I'll just bring up some of the ones that Nem and I predicted for Season 8 that didn't happen that I still think deserve to happen sooner or later. Stuff like Bill Cipher vs Discord, Ghost Rider vs Spawn, Cole vs Alex, Jason vs Michael, Little Mac vs Zippo. Just those ones actually, the rest I don't really care for. I mean, I do care for Splinter vs Shifu, but we're not getting 2 seasons in a row with a Kung Fu Panda episode. So that's basically all the episodes I think have a good shot and wouldn't be surprised to see. And just for fun, I'll see if I can put together a half-decent season list using only the episodes I brought up here with the matches I'm most confident in happening. There is quite a lot of cape shit in here and it's not too well spaced out, but just bear with me. With the 6 matches we already know, Jinx vs Harley makes sense to do early on with Arcane being super popular, and I can see it being an SFM or Blender battle given the focus on heavy weaponry over martial arts. Magneto vs Tetsuo would probably be a Sprite episode, I'll throw that in early on as well. Scarlet Witch vs Zatanna I can totally see being another Sprite fight to release roughly around the time of Doctor Strange 2. I'll follow that up with Tanjiro vs Jonathan to break up the streak of comics. Boba Fett vs Predator will probably end up being 3D, but I'll place my bets on it being a live action episode as a curveball, probably later in the year since that's when the last 2 live action fights released in their seasons. And Thor vs Vegeta can be another Sprite fight that can go, well, anywhere really. I would have it closer to the release of the Dragon Ball Super movie coming out, but I'll place it later on to space that out from the premiere, which I'm pretty sure will be one of Omni-Man's matches, and I'm pretty sure that'll be Bardock given how popular that match got last year. Omni-Man feels like a big enough character to open the season with, so that's why I have him in this spot over Jinx. It'll probably be Sprites because Origin the PogChamp revealed he was making those a while ago on Twitter, and what do you know, he had Bardock as a comparison in the image. In terms of the 3D fights, I can't see the in-house team getting that many. I guess I'll throw Kylo Ren vs Edelgard and Nero vs Hellboy in there. The former because Ben wants to use Fire Emblem, and the latter because of the traction I've seen it picking up recently. I'll throw Hellboy vs Nero into the second half because it's closer to Halloween. For the SFM battles, we got 3 last year, so I've put 2 more outside of Harley vs Jinx. Gru vs Megamind seems like a lock for the summer to release alongside Minions 2, and I'll throw Black Adam vs Apocalypse around there for a Sprite episode because the Black Adam movie is releasing around the same time. And for the latter half of the season, I can see them being given Bowser vs Eggman in time for the Mario movie coming out. They mention more series being used that people aren't expecting, so I should probably add a few more of those. I don't know what qualifies as stuff people don't expect, but I'll throw in Mordecai and Rigby vs Finn and Jake as more cartoon representation to bring them back from their mid-season break, and I'll make it the season's hand-drawn fight because why not? And to fill the last few Sprite slots before the finale, I'll add Little Mac vs Zippo and Koro Sensei vs Monokuma because they're some of the ones that interest me the most that I don't think would need to be 3D. And the finale, as much as I would want it to be pushed to next year so Nem's friend can be there to experience the waiting period, I don't think anything else is more likely than Kyle vs Simone. It's just that popular. And it could definitely be done as a Sprite-based finale, so the departure of a lot of the 3D animators wouldn't be something that would hold it back. And yeah, that's about the kind of season I'm expecting. Only time will tell how many of these I get right. Hopefully more than the 0 I got last year. If you have any predictions of your own, leave them in the comments. I'll see you next time with my live reaction to the reveal of Homelander vs Omni-Man as the season premiere. Please, I beg, let that age poorly.